Batra Daf Kufyud Bet, continuing from Kufyud Aleph Amud Bet, approximately 14 lines down. Mishnah mentioned Va'ish et Ishto. Mishnah says that a man inherits his wife, but she doesn't inherit from him. Minami, I know that Tanabanan Breita says, She'ero, you shall give the inheritance to his flesh, to his relative. Zu Ishto is referring to his wife. We see from a husband, we see that a husband inherits his wife. Maybe you might think that also she would inherit him as well. But when the Gemara Pasuk says, V'rash otah, he will inherit her. Hu yoresh otah, ve'en he yoresh otah, he inherits her, but not her inheriting him. But the Pasuk does not mention like that in that order per se. The word flesh is talking about whoever receives it, not the one who's giving it. The one who's like, Amar explain it this way. But not intatem et nahlatot la korobe, like we should give the inheritance to the one who's close. She'ero ve'erash otah. Next part says his flesh, he will inherit her. Or it says Amarava, sakina harifa masake krai. You're using a sharp knife to cut in the pesukim. Yani you're butchering the pesukim to break it down and explaining in different order. Remember says okay. Amarava hachi kamar says untemet nahat she'ero lo. You should give his inheritance, the inheritance of him to him. Kasavar gorino umosifin v'dorshin. Maybe you might think Rava can learn the pasuk because he's subtracting and adding letters, right, and then explaining it. So he holds that basically the letters from the words Nahalato Nish'ero are combining to a new word. Nahalato Nish'ero, the two letters Lamed Vav, to him. Teach you that it goes to him, the husband. But we have a different pasuk. Tanya, V'yarash Otah, he inherits her. The husband, according to Rabbi Akiva, this pasuk teaches you the husband inherits her. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, you don't need that. Hari Omer, and pasuk says, V'chol bat yoresh hatu matuk b'nei Yisrael le'echam v'achad. The daughter inherits the from the Shivatim to another Shevet. He should become of her father, should marry that Shevet, same Shevet as her father. So we see that the pasuk says that the woman cannot inherit her father's Shevet, and men marry other Shevatim, so that the Shevet land won't get transferred. That is referring to the transfer of property from the shevet of the husband to the wife. V'omer, another pasuk says. So whenever you have this concept v'omer, we're gonna have a few of them. The Gemara asks, how come you the more pasukim teaching you the same thing? And the Gemara will say, because if you only mention this, you would not think what we were going to say. So yani these pasukim were not sufficient by themselves. So v'omer, another pasuk says as follows. Okay, so v'omer, and the inheritance of Bnei Israel will not be transferred from one shevet to shevet. V'omer, another pasuk says, the inheritance should not be transferred from one shevet to another shevet. V'omer, another pasuk says, Ve'elazar ben Aaron met, the Elazar, the son of Aaron, died. They buried him on the hill of Pinehas, his son. How do you know that Pinehas had not had property that did not belong to his father? Right? That belonged to Pinehas means that seemingly Pinehas owned it separately, not from his father. It must be that Pinehas married a woman, and she died and inherited her. Another pasuk says, Seguv had the child Yair. And he owned 23 cities in the land of Gilad. Seemingly that his son owned it and not his father. How do you know that Yair did not own these properties that belonged to his father? So, but basically, how did he own it if it did not belong to his father? It must be that he married a woman, he inherited her. Now, my Vilmer, how come we need more than one pasuk? The one says because you might have argued that that pasuk did not mean exactly what we're saying. You might think maybe the first pasuk is not a case where we said that the woman inherits her father to marry to another shevet. Maybe the pasuk is just saying we were worried about the son's inheritance of her, meaning if the son she has through a different shevet will be part of his father's shevet. So let's say the woman is from shevet Reuven. She gets from her father. She marries a man from Shimon, and that son will be from Shimon. And if he gets from his mother, he'll also get Reuven. So therefore, we don't want the woman to marry a different shevet. So the word is okay. not teaching you it doesn't work. Maybe it teaches that if you do it, you're chayav on a mitzvot aseh and mitzvot aseh. Tashmana the pasuk says, don't transfer inheritance from one shevet to the next. Maybe that's also not a good pasuk because maybe that pasuk is just teaching you lavor alav. Maybe it's teaching you that if you over on, you'll be chayav on two isurim and one aseh. Tashmana the pasuk says, Be'elazar ben Aaron met the pasuk of Pinahas. Maybe I think he didn't inherit it, but rather how did he get Elazar who didn't see it? Maybe Elazar married a woman who owned that hill. She had Pinahas, Umeta Virata, Pinhas inherited her. Tashmana Pasuks, Yair, the story of the Pasuk of Seguv having Yair, and Yair owned that land. Seemingly Yair inherited his wife. That Pasuk also doesn't work. Maybe he also had a case where the mother gave it to Yair, and she died. And came today, how can we have two Pesukim teaching the same thing? The son inherits his mother. So therefore, it must be one of the Pesukim teaches you that the husband inherits the wife. How do we know that is referring to husband to wife? Still not a proof. Maybe the husband never inherits the wife. Maybe the first three Pesukim, like we said, is referring to through the son, like we mentioned earlier, and therefore that's not a good proof. Maybe Yair did buy the property. Pinhas Nami doesn't know. The Pinhas also bought the property. He didn't get it through the wife or the mother. No proof. The Gemara says, therefore, Pinhas Zabin Zaban Lo Masdam. You can't say Pinhas bought it. That's the case. If he's burying his father in that property, then we know that the property in Eretz is returned after Yovel. So you're telling me, would he bury his father in a property that will eventually get transferred back to the person he bought it from, and then his father, the Tzaddik Lazar, will be buried in the land that doesn't belong to him? That can't be. Can't be. He bought it. Maybe you might say, maybe it fell through him. Pinchas was able to acquire it through lands that was donated via a cherem vow, and the Kohanim have rights to that, and therefore that's something that belongs to him, and therefore there's no pasuk. He got this through a third party means. That's not going to have the problem of the father being uh, of the property being returned during Yovel, and it's still a good, and therefore there's no proof that the husband inherits the wife. So, regardless, we see that a woman who inherits from two shivatim, she has to marry her only from her father's shevet. Haka mitakran nachla, but still the property would be taken away. Her mother's shevet property will eventually be transferred to her father's shevet's property. How's that possible? So how do you avoid that? The Gemara says, Mimai, who says? That's different. We're not worried about that because the mother who already married the father already technically transferred it over because the husband can inherit her. No. We don't hold like, oh, it already happened. And the Torah doesn't carry more. Rather, how do we know that there's a difference between the mother's property and the father's property, and that we're worried about the daughter marrying someone else to transfer that over? If you say that the Torah is not concerned about the mother's property because we look at it as already transferred. That's why the pasuk is able to be decided and interpreted that is referring to both the transfer of property through the son and through the father, yani the husband. And therefore, the requirement, the chiyub to marry the father's shevet solves both issues, since both the woman, the husband, and the son are both belonging to the same shevet. But if you don't hold it where that the woman's property is considered already transferred, then when she marries someone from her father's shevet, how does that help you? And you're still transferring from her mother's property to her father's property. Maybe the Torah is case where she married a man whose father is from her father's shevet, and her mother from the mother, and the mother and the mother is from the mother's shevet. Therefore, there's no transfer, like we'll see right now. Amud bet. That's the case. Pasuk doesn't say that it's separate mother, father, but Pasuk only mentioned the father. It doesn't say that it's identical mother to mother, father to father. It only mentions the father. But if you're right that you just said, then it should be father, mother. Pasuk should have said. The Gemara says, okay, would have written that. Maybe you would have said that even if it's the reverse, meaning the husband's shevet has to be the opposite of the the woman's mother, and the woman's father will be equal to the husband's mother. Kamashman, therefore, the pasuk would teach you that it has to be husband to husband, yani husband to father, mother to mother, as the same Shabbatim. Tanya Besivat Ben. We told in the Braita the transfer of the inheritance through the son. The time of the Baal, we also took the transfer of the inheritance through the husband. Times of the Ben, we taught the pasuk. We learned through about it that the pasuk is referring to the transfer of the son. The inheritance of the Bnei Israel will not be transferred from one shevet to another shevet. Besibat Ben is that the pasuk is seemingly referring to the transfer through the son. I thought who says the pasuk is about the son? Well, in the pasuk is referring to the husband's transfer. Kishomer, therefore, the pasuk says, the pasuk says another pasuk of the inheritance will not be transferred from one shevet to another shevet. That's referring to the husband being transferred. So what does the first pasuk teach you? It must be the pasuk is referring to the transfer of the son. It says, the inheritance should not be transferred from one shevet to another shevet. That's referring to the transfer of the husband. Maybe who's referring to the Baal, the husband? Oh, maybe that pasuk is referring to the son. Therefore, we say the pasuk earlier that we said that teaches you that's referring to the son. So our pasuk do is referring to the husband. Now, both Braitot mentioned they both say the pasuk of that is referring to the husband. Why did we automatically agree on that? Where it said pasuk said man. Teach you that in pasuk is referring to the inheritance of the husband because it's talking about man. Where it says both pasukim have the word ish. It's not a proof. Where it says the pasuk says yid beku, cleaving. Cleaving is usually referring to husband to wife. Where it says both pasukim say cleave. Says matot. The shevatim will cleave. That shows you that the inheritance will be by the husband because shevatim cling to each other or cleave to each other in marriage. Where it says Amar Rashi, Amar Ibn Ezra, Amar Krami Matel Matel Acher teaches you Uben Lav Acherhu. Because the pasuk says one shevet to the shevet of another, and the son won't be considered the shevet of another because he's exactly his father, and therefore, yani with the mother or father, and therefore the pasuk must be referring to the inheritance of a husband because the son to the mother rather will not be considered another person. This other person sounds like someone who's not blood. And therefore, it must be talking about the case is talking about the husband inheriting the wife.